My first idea for a play is called Choices, and it is 6 12 to 15-minute plays threaded together with the theme of choice. In the first play, Amelia, in her early 40s, goes to visit her ex in prison, expecting an apology for the horrible way she was treated, and instead finds a way to accept responsibility for her choices and the role that she played in the very painful breakup. Fast forward 5 years, and in the next play, we find Amelia running a dive bar in the south side of Pittsburgh, and in the middle of a conversation with Katie, who is single and in her early 30s, and Carol, who is in her 40s and a nun, who is teaching Bible study in the dive bar. They really talk about the paradigm of normal versus happy and what that means to each of us, to each of them. In the next play, it's a couple of years later. Carol has left the convent. She has abandoned the habit and is at a local animal shelter trying to adopt a dog when she's really trying to figure out a way how to have companionship in a way that she's comfortable with. The woman working at the shelter, Jennifer, is in her 30s, and she's dealing with her own issues that come to light during the conversation she and Carol have about whether or not Carol really is ready to adopt a dog. In the next play, we find Jennifer and her husband, John, preparing for and experiencing a visit from John's parents. It's the first time they've been to visit since they were married, and it happens to fall on the 10-year anniversary date of John's first wife's suicide. The fifth play is Beverly, who is John's mother, visiting John's illegitimate child out of town and his mother, and finding herself being manipulated to get money, and almost coming through with it because she feels so horribly guilty for not having been in Brandon's life for the first 10 years that he's been on the planet. The final play finds a conversation outside an urban coffee shop where over frappuccinos and lattes, Amelia and Brandon have a conversation about what it really takes to transcend addiction. And Amelia kind of schools Brandon about the only way, the absolute key to transcending addiction is to take responsibility for your life and your choices. So Amelia is the character from the very first play, which ties it together, and again threaded with the theme of choices. By that. My next play is called Up the Downstairs, and it is an Oscar Wilde-ish satire that focuses on Harrison and Gwendolyn Sutcliffe, billionaires, who have decided, after watching a friend lose a son tragically, that they want their lives to have a little more meaning and purpose. So when their minister approaches them and asks if they'd be willing to join the prison ministry, they take it as a sign and immediately jump on board. But it's not long before their egos convince them that they could help the prisoners more by employing them when they're released than they are by visiting them while they're in prison. So as some of the guys are released, they hire them, they pay them minimum wage, give them a cot in the basement to sleep in, and it's all good. And then their friends start noticing that they've got cheap labor, and they want in on the action. So the Sutcliffes decide to form an ex-con employment agency, and they call it WAP, the Wealthy Helping Oppressed Prisoners. And everything is going along swimmingly. These guys are getting paid minimum wage, they've got a place to sleep. It's better than the 3 hots and a cot they had while they were actually in prison. So it's going along really well, and bushes are getting trimmed, and grass is getting cut, and rugs are getting vacuumed. Until one of the cons is teaching another one how to read. And this is completely unacceptable. They don't want, none of the Sutcliffes or their friends want these guys to leave and have lives that are fulfilling to them. They just want them to be cheap labor. So the guy who was caught teaching is fired, and several more incidences like this occurred until maybe 4 or 5 of these ex-cons have been fired for breaching, the agreement that they would just be cheap menial labor. So the prisoners start talking, and they realize, you know what, maybe we actually had it better in prison. We could actually take a class in prison. We could get our GED in prison. We could get a vocational license in prison. What are we doing here but busting our asses 40 or 50 hours a week and a cot with some food, you know? So they start committing crime so that they can get locked up again and return to prison. Jason Wong is a public defender who happens to be assigned to represent one of the former ex-WAP employees. And as he talks to him, he finds out what's been going on, locates the other ex-WAP employees, and convinces them to file a class action suit against WAP and the Sutcliffes for cruel and inhuman punishment. The trial is a 3-ring circus. It's a brown-skinned female judge, an Indian attorney representing WAP and the Sutcliffes, and of course the new media shows up to detail every single thing that's going on in each of the 3 rings of the circus, while the rest of the world anxiously awaits the precedent because it's the first time a case like this has ever been tried in an American court. My next play is called Wine Country, Wine with an H, and it is a drama with a lot of humor that focuses on one car that is part of a train tour of wine country in upstate New York. And on this one car, we have 5 brown-skinned women who are having a reunion of sorts. They're college friends. They haven't seen each other in about 10 years. So there's lots of cause for celebration and plenty of catching up to do. Catching up on career accomplishments and what their kids have been up to and what their marriages have been like. So before they even pull out of the station, they're joking and chattering and talking over each other and having a grand old time. By the time the train's gone a few minutes, the other women on the car, 5 white women, are starting to give some side glances and some stink eye to the group of loud women. Clarice, one of the brown-skinned women, notices this, makes a joke to her friends, and they all respond in the only way they really feel they can. They just get louder. This causes one of the white women to summon the conductor, who arrives and attempts to mediate some type of peaceful arrangement. When it's clear that that's not going to happen, he calls the police in the town that they're headed to, and they advise him that it's best to escort the brown-skinned women off the train at the next stop. They will be there to help them do that and take them back to the tour company where they're able to catch the next train. So obviously the brown-skinned women aren't very happy about this, and now everybody's not happy because the train is broken down about 10 miles from that first station. So the tensions really escalate at this point. All of the women are trying to justify and defend their perspective on this situation. And it really escalates until one of the white women takes a gun out of her purse and threatens to end the trip for half of them. Clarice boldly dives toward her, grabs the gun, points it at everybody, and tells them to shut up and sit down. She then places the gun on an empty table, showing that she's got faith, that they can all find some common ground and end this in a peaceful way. The verbal darts, the sarcasm, and the arguments still continue, dealing with racism, classism, feminine gender issues, equality, all kinds of things. Sometimes loudly, sometimes quietly, and a lot of times with tears, until only one thing rests on the table with that gun. As much as they're loath to admit it, they all have a lot more in common than any of them ever would have guessed.